For more, we're joined by Elaine Fahy, law professor at City University of London. Thank you very much indeed for coming to Global Business. So we just heard Penny mention Polexit there, Poland's legal exit from the European Union. Do you think it will really come to that?
Well, I think it's a very difficult juncture in time, but of course the European Court of Human Rights in Strasbourg, a totally different legal order to the EU legal order, has also found the Polish Constitutional Tribunal to be illegally constituted, as it were. So the EU is not the only legal order looking at the Polish legal order and saying there are many serious issues with this. And the EU institutions have very much dragged their heels for a long period of time. But what's happening now is that they are showing Poland in particular now that you have to obey the rule of law in order to obtain enormous financial assistance. So I'm not so sure Polexit it's very much it's not something on the ground. There's massive support for EU membership, remember, and there's also a massive need for EU funds. But what is much more concerning for the EU is the loss of value, is leaving the EU effectively by default. But at the same time, Poland is in a very weak position. In contrast, is not a situation at all remotely close to Brexit, and there's a huge financial dependency. So there's a lot at play, but ultimately the EU is not the only legal order that's looking at Poland and saying this is, as a matter of international law, as a matter of legal order, is not lawfully constituted as a court. It's not a real court.
And what do you think the ruling can mean in practical terms if Poland does ignore EU law? What kind of actions are we likely to see from Poland?
Well, I'm not so able to suggest you what Poland is likely to do as a matter of EU law. The EU has many tools at its disposal to go after those who do not comply with its judgment. There's certain legal tools, and the Commission President has forcefully stated that von der Leyen has stated that the EU is extremely concerned by the situation. So there are enormous fines that Poland can be subjected to, and again, the financial penalty mechanism here is really significant, and we've seen this in other contexts, them backing down after the financial situation, taking them to the brink. So there are many ways that this can play out, but ultimately the EU is the stronger partner. It is a party in a situation where there's billions of euros at stake.
You mentioned the legitimacy of the court itself being contested because of the way that the judges were appointed. What more background can you give us about this tribunal?
Well, my expertise is in international relations and global governance, but this tribunal is one of a series of actions that are taking place in Poland that are becoming globally more the study of a significant study, copying the practices taking place in Hungary, packing courts with favourites of the government and engaging in disciplinary action against those who are not disposed to the government. And it's happening in many places of the world. There are many studies of populism all over the globe, but in particular, they hone in upon matters in Poland and in Hungary initially. So it's a playbook that is playing out in many other contexts. It's not very original in that regard, and there are many forms of it, but Poland is unfortunately the study of this for packing courts that are close to the administration. And this is what is of much concern internationally, but also across the EU.
So you mentioned that the EU is the bigger player here. Is there anything that the EU can do about Poland breaking the rules? If it can't expel Poland from the club, what else can it do?
Well, as I've already indicated, there are many ways in which the compliance of EU law is fostered, and principally through law, the rule of law. The EU itself is a legal order based upon the rule of law. There are means and mechanisms by which those who are not complying with the rule of law can be followed up. And we see that the Commission instituting proceedings against, for example, Poland. If you do not comply with the judgment of the Court of Justice, there are further procedures that can be followed to fine for each day in which the decision is not adhered to. But there are certain procedural steps that are quite complex. But ultimately, the financial dimension of the litigation that the earliest reporter mentioned going on today, is the really important things. What will be the outcome of that litigation about this, the rule of law conditionality to this financing? And if you're not complying with the rule of law and not getting the COVID financing, there's going to be an enormous implication there for Poland. So I think that is the billions of euros literally at stake. That is the carrot and stick in all of this, because just generally this is going on for a very long time. and the Commission has largely been fighting out many of these battles before the courts. But I also mentioned to you that this is taking place in the Strasbourg courts as well. So there are more and more international courts looking at this, but the one with the most fining or sanctioning power is, in fact, the EU's legal order through its court based in Luxembourg, through its administration based in Brussels.
Well, thank you very much indeed for explaining all that to us. Professor Elaine Fahy from City University of London. Thank you.